Everybody, welcome to the show. Around the Nation, right here, TYT Nation. I'm your host, Jeff Waldorf. Got a great Monday show for you guys planned today. We'll start out with some fun. Then we've got some more serious stories. And we're going to catch up with a couple of things that happened over the weekend. But hey, again, hope everybody had a great weekend. We're back with another good show. Just an aside, I don't want to give you spoilers, but I watched the Star Wars movie over the weekend. That was interesting. I actually did enjoy it, but it was interesting, a little controversial. Again, I don't really want to spoil it for anybody who hasn't watched the Star Wars movie already. But yeah, it's one of the movies where you're either going to like it or you're going to hate it. So, interesting drama. But nonetheless, from my view, I enjoyed it. I thought it was a good movie. So, and you know, you can have your opinion if you disagree. All right. So that said, we're gonna have some fun talking about the EPA. Then we're gonna talk about the CDC under President Trump and some of their interesting decisions that they have made. Then we've got the tax bill. We've got Joe Scarborough defending millennials. What the hell is this? And then Doug Jones. Super disappointment or moderate disappointment? He's hardly even started, but again, Doug Jones. Radical centrism, man. So, all right. Anyway, that's what we've got planned for the day. So stay right here the next hour so I go around the nation with some of the best stories and progressive political commentary from around the web. I want to thank the patrons, patreon.com/TYT Nation for their support of the show. Could not run this show without you guys and gals, so thank you very much. If you're watching this live, please give us a like and a share as well to help get out to the masses. Thank you very much for doing that. That helps us a ton too. All right. So let's dive into it with a little trip to the EPA. So here's a little inside look at what it's like to work at the Trump EPA. Now, Scott Pruitt, who has taken control of the agency, who now runs the EPA, he's done a lot of slashing of the budget, as well as changing what the EPA is actually supposed to do. See, they were the Environmental Protection Agency, but they really haven't been doing a whole lot about protecting the environment. Especially considering a lot of the other things that the Trump administration has already done when it comes to environmental regulations. They've eliminated nearly all the Obama regulations that were passed during the last administration, withdrew from the Paris Climate Agreement, went after the Clean Power Plan, all that stuff. So environmental regulations under the Trump administration have not been doing very well. So obviously, we've had actually an increase in carbon emissions, which is wonderful. So anyway, this inside look at the EPA actually reveals an agency that is both underfunded, understaffed, and now, according to a report, has literal shit coming out of the water fountains. Again, this is falling apart incredibly fast. Now, last Thursday, employees at the EPA headquarters in Washington, D.C. discovered sewage literally spewing out of the water fountains, according to E&E News. So employees ended up getting an email about 9 in the morning, letting them know that there was, quote, a water line backup causing a slight issue with the fountains. That issue, of course, being that the water fountains were literally exploding with poop. Yes. Dan Becker, director of the Safe Climate Campaign, told E&E News, a sewer problem at the EPA HQ has resulted in poop exploding out of water fountains. Well, to be fair, at least it's not a poop-nado.
It's like a Sharknado, except with poop.
Yeah. As pointed out by Mr. Shapiro. Anyway, now the explosion, interestingly enough. Okay, so look, here we have the wealthiest country in the world, by the way. And we have raw sewage exploding out of government offices. That would be funny if it weren't so sad, right? Now, to make what was funny, but or what is sad, but funny into something even funnier, is the fact that the explosion had detonated outside of the EPA's Office of Policy in the hallway near Scott Pruitt's office. Well, at least that's something. So, according to E&E News, a few other water fountains also overflowed on the same floor, and the odor from the black sludge had wafted into nearby offices. So, look, I read the story, and the first thing that came to my head is that, hey, look, looks like those people at the EPA, most notably Scott Pruitt, if he was there in the office at that time, is kind of getting a taste of what it's like to live near an oil spill. Of course, it's now funnier because it's human shit. But then, look, it's not funny because right now the EPA is essentially being used to deregulate industry. It's protecting industry instead of the environment. So, I mean, look, Scott Pruitt, that's what he was put there to do. Okay, Scott Pruitt had successfully, or had tried to sue the EPA many, many times over any sort of regulation. For example, pipeline regulations, right? Well, I don't know if this is related. I mean, sewers, yes, those are pipelines. But as far as any kind of regulations of removing things like waste and of course water and things like that, the Trump administration has been trying to deregulate and basically allow industry to do whatever the hell it wants. And also, as far as infrastructure goes, which I think this would fall into the case of, they haven't really done anything about fixing our infrastructure. In fact, look, President Trump ran on fixing infrastructures. Oh, it's going to create a lot of jobs, right? And look, I do believe infrastructure does create lots of jobs when done correctly. Now, the Republican plan to do infrastructure was just to sell it off to private corporations. That is not a good plan. That's actually not going to create jobs. So when it comes to infrastructure spending, they haven't done any of this. I haven't seen anything about infrastructure in the Trump budget or anything. So it's not even on their radar. And while it's not on their radar, we have the EPA offices literally exploding with shit. So that's what we have. It's both ironic and incredibly fitting that the office, right, that Scott Pruitt got sent to destroy is literally falling apart because nobody paid attention to it. Because people aren't fixing it. We're not using our massive wealth to fix our own infrastructure. And look, to be fair, this had been like this before, right? Not exploding shit, but people were pretty wary about drinking out of the water fountains even before President Trump and Scott Pruitt. Now, again, if Trump was interested in infrastructure at all, they would have taken a look at it and go, you know what? Maybe we could actually allocate some of the funding to fix that. Because look, what if it explodes one of these days? What if something bad happens? Well, something bad did happen. And again, they're not doing anything about it. So now the other ironic thing that you could probably take away from this, at least that's what I'm going to take away, is that this is a symbol of what's happening to the government under Republicans. It's literally falling apart. It's exploding with shit, which I think is the best comparison that anybody could ever draw with the Trump administration. Amazing. Amazing. It's fallen apart, man. It's fallen apart. Okay. On to something a little bit more serious, but still disastrous. Let's go to political correctness. Now, I hear over and over again that Republicans, that conservatives, Trump voters hate political correctness. They hate PC culture. I hear it all the time. We've got Trump voters that are like railing on against PC culture. How dare you tell us the words that we can and cannot use in our daily lives? How dare you try to tell us to be politically correct? I thought this was America. Now, Trump, when he went into office, of course, during the campaign trail and before he went into office, and even sometimes afterwards, railed against political correctness. That is a common theme among Republicans now. The liberals are telling us what we can and can't say. How disastrous. No, we tell you that you probably shouldn't say the N-word because it's terrible, and you're probably going to get your ass kicked. So don't say that, right? It's racist. But no, Trump voters are like, no, we deserve the right to be able to say the N-word. Amazing, right? But anyway, I'm getting far ahead of myself. Trump said this war, this political correctness, I should say, and this war on words, it's all supposed to end with President Trump, right? Now people will no longer have to be politically correct. We can all say Merry Christmas, as if there was some law that was saying that we couldn't. And everything was supposed to be great, right? Well, not if you work for the CDC. According to the Washington Post, citing official budget documents, right? The Trump administration is now prohibiting officials at the CDC from using a list of, for now, 7 words or phrases. Wait till you hear what they are. All right. Policy analysts at the Center for Disease Control and Prevention in Atlanta were told of the list of forbidden terms at a meeting on Thursday with senior CDC officials who oversee the budget, according to an analyst who took part in the 90-minute briefing. Now, the forbidden words are vulnerable, entitlement, diversity, transgender, fetus, and evidence-based and science-based. That's amazing. For one, they can't even say the word transgender. I guess because if somebody says it, they have to acknowledge that, oh, transgender people exist and they actually have health issues that we need to attend with. And the CDC, of course, does research in health-related fields. So, they can't even say the word transgender. That probably means also that they're not going to fund anything LGBT-related. That might actually help the LGBT community or help transgender people in specific. So you can't say that. Now, fetus. This is amazing. They can't even say the word fetus. That is the official scientific term, right? Fetus. No, can't say that. That is politically correct. We have to call them babies. What's next? Are they going to say that we can't say the word zygote? Again, that is a scientific term. No. You can't call them zygotes. You can't call them fetuses. You have to call them babies. Because that is the politically correct term for a developing human being in the womb. Because we've tested that. And when you say baby, then suddenly support for ending abortion or banning abortion goes up. That's how this works. Anyway. And again, look, they're banning these words because President Trump and the Republican Neanderthals that are in charge are forcing them to not say those things. But they still have to say something, right? Well, some words and phrases have replacements, others do not. Here are some of the alternative phrases. Instead of science-based, the Washington Post writes, or evidence-based, the suggested phrase is CDC bases its recommendations on science in consideration with community standards and wishes. What does that even mean? What is this? Like, instead of saying science-based or evidence-based, which is fairly clear, right? It is based on the science. It is based on the evidence. We have come to this conclusion. No, it is replaced by, we have based our recommendations on science in consideration with community standards and wishes. What the fuck? What community? What are we even talking about? It means nothing. It means nothing. And look, okay, even if we're talking about a community, right? Even if there was something defined, well, why should a community of what I assume to be non-scientists making scientific recommendations to the CDC? You know what I think this is code for? Me and my fundamentalist friends, we do not like evidence-based science. And so you can't say that. We're going to be politically correct and call it what it is. Not based on evidence, not based on science, but we can't say, hey, my flat earther friend said this, or my super religious fundamentalist friends in office, or my vice president, Mike Pence, thinks the earth is only 6,000 years old. Can't actually say that. We have to say that this is based on community, right? The community standards and wishes. The wishes of the community are now weighed more than scientific evidence. That's what this suggests. Okay. Now, of course, the HHS told the Washington Post, that's not it at all. No. The Department of Health and Human Services, which oversees the CDC, and this is where this directive is coming from, will continue to use the best scientific evidence available to improve the health of all Americans. HHS also strongly encourages the use of outcome and evidence data in program evaluations and budget decisions. But you can't even say that anymore. If you work for the CDC, you are not allowed to say in a paper, right, or write evidence-based or science-based in any of your conclusions. How? I don't understand. You're not making a good case for yourself. I mean, you're literally banning words. And look, they even banned the word diversity. Diversity. Who the hell is against diversity? Oh, right, white nationalists. The white nationalists who, of course, overwhelmingly prefer the Republicans and President Trump specifically. And then, of course, there's the religious fundamentalists, right? Now, these are the evangelicals that overwhelmingly voted for President Trump. They also happen to hate the LGBT community. So, no, get rid of transgender. We can't talk about those guys or gals. Can't talk about them at all. They don't exist. They're against Jesus. So we can't do anything about that, right? We can't talk about them. And especially we can't have any policy that directly relates to them. Political correctness. Now, the Post notes that several key departments, including the HHS, as well as the Justice, Education, and Housing, and Urban Development, have also changed some of their federal policies and how they collect government information about LGBT Americans. In March, for example, HHS dropped questions about sexual orientation and gender identity in 2 surveys of elderly people. Okay. And look, yeah, I understand elderly people, right? But what happens? I mean, when do you think that they're going to drop it for people who are not elderly? And why are they dropping it for elderly people at all? It doesn't make any sense. Unless you're looking at it as from a lens of, we just don't like these people, so we're just not going to, mention them at all. They no longer exist to us. Their needs no longer exist to us as an agency, as put forward by the president, vice president, and the GOP Congress. We don't care about these people. That's what they're saying. Now, HHS has also removed information about LGBT Americans from its website. The Department of Administration for Children and Families, for example, archived a page that outlines federal services that are available for LGBT people and their families, including how they can adopt and receive help if they are victims of sex trafficking. So there was this page, right? Federal services. Well, look, Trump administration, Republican administration, those services are gone, right? So, yeah, they're not there. So sex trafficking, hey, man, if you're LGBT and you happen to be sex trafficked, we do not care about you. We have no resources for you to help you. We don't care. We don't give a fuck. We're going to remove a page, and not only remove a page, but eliminate these services that will help you get out of that situation, again, because we don't care. Also, have we told you how pro-life we are? We love our babies. Can't say fetus. Can't say fetus. That's not allowed anymore. We got to use a politically correct term, baby. Sickening. Now, at the CDC, the meeting about these banned terms was led by a woman named Allison Kelly. Now, she is a career civil servant who is a senior leader in the agency's Office of Financial Services, according to this CDC analyst. Now, look, this isn't Allison Kelly's fault. All she's doing is she's relaying the information that she was told, right? Hey, man, look, this is what's coming on from on high. The HHS, they're telling us what we can and can't say. So this is what we got to do, right? So again, I'm not going to blame her. It's not her fault. This is coming from somewhere else, okay? Now, this person, this analyst, who basically has come out with all this information, is of course speaking on the condition of anonymity because she was not, or this person, sorry, he or she was not authorized to speak publicly. Now, Kelly did not say why the words were being banned, according to the analyst, and told the group that she was just merely relaying the information. Other officials at the CDC confirmed the existence of a list of forbidden words. It's likely that other parts of the HHS are operating under the same guidelines regarding the use of these words, according to this analyst. Now, again, this is important because the CDC handles a lot of stuff. Several offices have responsibility for work that uses some of these terms. The National Center for HIV/AIDS, Viral Hepatitis, STD, and TB Prevention is actually working on ways to prevent HIV among transgender people and reduce health disparities. The CDC's work on birth defects caused by the Zika virus includes research on the developing fetus, right? So this is like the first step in changing these, right? In eliminating these programs. You just admit that the people that you're working on don't actually exist. You come up with different words. It keeps making me think of erasure. No. If we just dehumanize these people and make sure that we don't have a term for them and don't reference them in papers, then we can slowly phase out these programs and nobody will notice until we have fully dehumanized them and made sure that we help that we give them absolutely no help through any sort of federal programs. Again, we don't care about these people. To us, these are not real Americans, and they don't deserve our help. That's what this says to me. Now, again, okay, the ban is related to the budget and supporting materials that are given to the CDC's partners in Congress, according to the analyst. Now, this person's job includes writing description of the CDC's work for the administration's annual spending blueprint. Could not recall a previous time when words were banned from budget documents because they were considered controversial. Now, who are they controversial to? Republicans, conservatives. It's not controversial to everybody else, but Republicans, conservatives are like, no, we're not going to talk about transgender people. They do not exist. We're going to call all babies, all fetuses babies, all zygotes are babies, all that stuff. And we can't talk about diversity or science-based or evidence-based anything. No, those are trigger words, and my snowflake cannot handle it. I will melt if I hear these words. Now, the CDC, the people who worked there, they were not impressed, okay? Now, the reaction of the people in the meeting was incredulous, according to the analyst. It was, quote, very much, "Are you serious? Are you kidding?" No, they are not kidding. The Trump administration is using politically correct language, the very thing that they sit and accuse liberals of all doing. They're doing themselves. This is 100% a projection. Absolute projection. He also said, in my experience, we never had any pushback from an ideological standpoint. Until now. Again, go back to during the Obama administration. Oh my God, everybody's being so politically correct. Oh, it's political correctness everywhere in the government. They're telling us what we can and can't say. Except that when you actually look at the government, under a Republican versus under a Democrat, you see that under the Democrats, under the Obama administration, there was actually no political correctness in government. They weren't using these, they weren't banning any words. The Trump administration, they are banning a bunch of words. This is not the end too. This is just the beginning. 3 words, right, that have been flagged in the drafts, according to analysts, right, are vulnerable, entitlement, and diversity. And the ban on other words had been conveyed verbally. And look, this just shows you, man, everything they say about progressives and liberals is exactly what they're trying to do themselves. This is Orwellian bullshit. They say we want to ban words. They're the ones banning words. They're the ones that they absolutely want to ban words. They say we want to ban books. They say we want to ban history, tear down history. No, that's exactly what they want to do because they want to go and rewrite it to suit their own political agenda. They say that we want to control their lives. That's exactly what they want to do. You look at all their different laws, all the things that they actually try to do, and you see what they're doing. They even say that they believe, oh no, we believe in evidence. The evidence says that there's no climate change, there's no global warming whatsoever. That's not true. That's not true. They don't believe in evidence-based anything. It's bullshit. These people are fascist authoritarians, man. That's what they actually are. And in order to set up an authoritarian fascist dictatorship, and I'm not kidding when I say that, right? You have to, you start doing politically correct language. This is straight out of the Nazi handbook from the 1940s, 1930s, man. This is what they're doing. This is what they're doing. Now, I'm not saying that Trump's a 100% Nazi. No, he's an idiot. But I'm saying is that they have authoritarian tendencies. And this is part of that. And yes, fascism is incredibly far right. It is a far right ideology where corporations and the state merge. And the state pushes corporate policies. What do you think is happening today? We have somebody who's definitely a wannabe authoritarian, who is just incredibly incompetent and idiotic. But nonetheless, he definitely wants to be an autocrat. He's just too stupid to be able to do it. But we got Republicans in there that are like, absolutely. You know what? We want to be autocrats too, because we love authoritarianism. We love telling people what they can do with their body, especially women. We love telling you what words you can and can't use that offend the sensibilities of our snowflake voter base that can't stand the word fetus and can't stand the fact that there are people that are different than them. How dare you? How dare you be transgender? No, get back in the closet. Gay people, get back in the closet. Now, this is a Republican time. It's our time, and we're telling you what to do. Fuck you. Fuck your authoritarian bullshit. Fuck your banned words, and fuck you. Am I clear? I'm clear. All right. Where's all the free speech defenders? Where's all the free speech defenders? I'm gonna keep going on if I don't move on to the next one. Where's Milo fucking Yiannopoulos? Saying, oh, political correctness. Fuck him too. Jesus. Okay. Deep breaths. Let's move on here. We got some corruption to talk about. So let's move on to that. As if that's going to make me less angry. All right. Now, Republican lawmakers are working on their final drafts of their plan to cut trillions of dollars in taxes for the wealthy and gigantic multinational corporations. Now, there's a new provision aimed at getting the support of certain congressmen that have people a little bit pissed. Now, according to a report from David Sirota, the International Business Times, it's an excellent report that doesn't seem to be getting a lot of traction in mainstream corporate media. I wonder why. According to this report, facing a firestorm of criticism, Republican Senator Bob Corker has sent a letter Sunday night to Finance Committee Chairman Orrin Hatch, right, asking how the final tax bill ended up with a certain special provision that experts say would benefit investors of real estate limited liability corporations. That's their LLCs, right? Now, what's interesting is that this provision would help someone like Bob Corker, who happens to have a real estate related LLC. So Bob Corker's sitting here, he's like, oh, I'm going to vote for this bill, but it has this thing in there that would benefit me. I wonder why it's in there, because everybody seems to be really pissed at me for some reason. I can't understand why. I said I was going to vote for this gigantic wealth redistribution tax cut for the wealthy, and it's got this provision that's going to help me out tremendously, and why are people mad that I'm going to vote for it? Weird. Now, he explains, the letter follows an International Business Times investigative series showing that Corker, President Trump, and House Speaker Paul Ryan, and a handful of key GOP lawmakers overseeing the tax bill have multi-million-dollar ownership stakes in such LLCs, meaning they could be personally enriched by the provision, which was added to the final tax legislation released on Friday. So not only would this bill just cut their taxes, right? Because Bob Corker is going to see a tax cut. Paul Ryan is going to see a tax cut. Donald Trump's definitely going to see a tax cut from this bill. And this would also enrich those very people even more with a special provision that they just decided just to throw in there. Especially tailored to benefit them if they have anything to do with real estate. Interesting. Now, look, I think it's pretty clear their intent. And in fact, I believe it was John Cornyn that said, hey, man, look, all we're trying to do is just cobble something together that the Republicans will vote for. Oh, you mean like Republicans like Bob Corker? Who you know, or you seem to know that he would benefit from this. That's why you threw this in. We know their intent. We know they're trying to get Republican votes, and they're like, hey, look, we'll give you something extra. Just vote for us, man. We got donors to please. Like, we know Bob Corker, he's going to retire. And so he doesn't have to serve the donors anymore. He's already served the donors plenty of times, and he is retiring his knee pads from doing so. Okay? That's why he's actually been honest about President Trump. Make no mistake, he's still a Republican. And so he's still going to look at, hey, man, self-interest. Look at that. I benefit greatly from this provision that's being thrown into this bill. So guess what? I'm going to vote for it. And, of course, when he gets called on, how did that end up in there? Oh, gee, I am so perturbed that this thing ended up in the tax bill that I'm voting for. Let's do something about it. Let's do something about it. This is textbook corruption. Textbook. And sadly, they do this all the time. They do this all the time. And according to David Sirota, there's a big reason, right? Now, Corker, this week, could decide the fate of the entire $1.5 trillion. Some analysis now are coming up with $2 trillion tax bill in the Senate. Now, John McCain, he's skipping out. He's like, oh man, this cancer. I got to go do something about it. Sorry, can't vote. As if the people already don't hate him enough at this point. He decided, okay, well, I'm not going to be there for the vote. So it's up to you guys. And really, it's up to Bob Corker. He's the last person, right? He's the lone guy who can make or break this bill. So it's very, very important to the donors. And if it's important to the donors, it's really, really important to the Republican politicians that the donors have actually purchased. So that's what we have going on here. Now, a lot of people thought maybe Bob Corker might be the guy who shuts down this bill, who, does this, right? He could be the guy that drops the thumbs down. And they base that on, and you hear a lot of corporate media talking about this. I think that this bill is pretty much a foregone conclusion. They're going to pass it. They're going to give the gigantic tax cuts to the rich, even though they know it's going to destroy the economy. They don't care. They work for their donors, right? But corporate media is like, ooh, Bob Corker, I don't know. He might have a conscience. Well, they base that on the fact that he did not vote for the last bill. However, the Senate bill did not have that provision. It was actually a provision sort of in the House bill. But it actually stretches far beyond that, as I'm going to explain. Now, how much would Corker save? And that's the question here, right? So how much is Corker worth? How much is his vote worth? Economist Dean Baker estimated that based on his financial holdings, Corker could be saving as much as $1.1 million from this late addition to the tax bill. And of course, this came out and everybody was pissed. They called it the Corker kickback, because that's exactly what this is. Now think about this. We live in a system where major pieces of legislation that are deeply unpopular with the American people, by the way, are passed with what to me seem like obvious bribes in order to get people's vote, in order to get them passed. So, and look, it's a disgusting system, and you wonder why people know that Congress isn't serving them, right? People know this. This is the stuff that they do all the time when people are not paying attention. This is considered just a part of legislating, just a part of the process. We give you massive kickbacks, pork, and bribes, and then you get our vote. Even if you're, not representing your constituents, which is clear because, again, most Americans do not want this tax bill, but we don't live in a democracy anymore. And I can argue we pretty much never have. But anyway, now under fire for switching his position after a personally lucrative provision was added to the bill, Corker said he demanded to know how the language got into the final bill. He said, quote, "Because this issue has raised concerns, I would ask that you provide an explanation of the evolution of this provision and how it made it into the final conference report. I think that because many sensitivities, clarity on this issue is very important, and I hope that you will respond in an expeditious manner." Basically, this is Corker saying, oh my God, I am shocked. I'm shocked to find out that there's gambling in this establishment. I had no idea. I had no idea it was in there. I didn't even read the bill. That's his defense. I didn't read the bill. I didn't even know it was in there. But I was going to vote for it anyway. Oh, that's convenient. That's super convenient. Now, to be fair, Corker is not a member of the Senate Finance Committee. He was not a part of the Senate conferees who negotiated the bill, but he could have at least read it. But no, that's not a good excuse. I didn't read the bill. Yeah, I know, nobody reads the bill. Your staffers actually read it, and your staffers actually tell you what's in it. And the fact that they added this in when it was Corker that is the deciding vote, I think it's pretty fucking clear who this was aimed at. People know, hey, look, Corker, he's got some interests. And, oh, look, he flipped his vote. You can't tell me that that had nothing to do with it, that he didn't know. Of course he knew. Of course he knew. Come on. We know, right? We know. You can't lie your way out of this one. They wanted to get the votes. They added this provision. And look, also this would help, again, Donald Trump, help Paul Ryan, so it would help themselves. Now, I want to explain this provision a little bit with the help of the International Business Times. Now, what this does specifically is that it will help pass through income generated by LLCs, partnerships, and S corporations that don't pay corporate taxes. The owners and investors do pay the individual rates, and the business itself doesn't pay any taxes. The taxation basically passes through the business and gets absorbed by the owners. That, of course, helps the business out because that's a lower tax rate. Especially now with this bill, that's going to give them a much lower tax rate. Now, that can be beneficial to a smaller company, but also this can be beneficial to bigger companies, which are also set up as pass-through corporations. Or pass-through entities. And look, the House version of the bill included a tax cut for such entities. Now, this would impose a 25% cap on the taxation of pass-through income. The Senate bill that Corker voted against, however, used a 23% deduction to reduce levies on pass-through businesses. The Senate bill also included language designed to prevent the tax cut from being utilized through pass-through entities which do not pay wages, a provision which congressional Republicans say helps ensure this particular form of tax relief goes to so-called job creators. Now, in the conference committee that drafted the reconciled bill, negotiators created a provision that was not in the House or Senate bills. They adopted the Senate framework of the bill including its restrictions, but crafted special new language to allow partnerships with depreciable assets that pay little or no wages to take advantage of the bill's 20% deduction on pass-through income. Now, it is unclear who actually added that, right? So we don't know. So here's the scam, right? So this would apply to partnerships with assets that pay little or no wages, and they get a reduction of 20%. So, and the language says that you don't actually have to create any jobs. You can create no jobs, and guess what? You get to take advantage of this gigantic pass-through rate as long as you have depreciable assets. So if you have anything that's considered a depreciable asset, that's it. You're getting a tax cut. You don't have to create jobs. Fuck that. Because that's not what this bill is about. This provision, this tax cut bill as a whole, is an enormous transfer of wealth from the poor and the middle class to the rich. You know why I say that, right? When wealthy people don't pay their taxes, guess who makes it up? You do. Because they're never going to make this significant cut. You think they're going to cut the military? No. They're going to put more money into the military. And instead of having rich people and corporations pay their fair share, now you're paying more out of your paycheck. For us to go, for those same corporations, by the way, that sell weapons to the U.S. military, the defense contractors, as well as the corporations that will take advantage of, for example, wars for oil, resources. That's the system we live in, man. They're going to get a tax cut for all that, and you're going to end up holding the bag. You're always going to end up paying the bill. So, and they're not hiding this anymore. They're not hiding the fact that it's a massive transfer of wealth. But Corker says, no, I didn't know this was in here for me. No, I'm just going to have to think about it. I mean, I was started the House bill. And this in no way has actually changed my vote whatsoever. I mean, golly gee, I had no idea. I had no idea. We're not buying it. We're not buying it, dude. Not buying it. He expects us to believe that this is just a coincidence. Just a coincidence. Look, if Corker votes for this, despite all this outrage, and I expect him to, he's saying that, yes, I don't have any morals. My vote can be bought because I am still just as corrupt as any of the other guys. I may be leaving Congress, but I'm still a Republican, and I'm still going to get paid. That's what this is about, and that's what this tax bill, all this is. So odds are he's going to vote for this. This provision is still going to be there, and nobody is going to do anything about it because, again, this is them trying to buy votes, and they will be very successful because they are corrupt politicians. Got to throw the bums out. In this case, this bum particularly is leaving, but the rest of them got to go. We cannot abide by this corruption. Okay. All right, let me take a quick break here, and then we'll be back. We got more show for you guys today, so stay right here, and I'll be right back. Back and around the nation. Jeff Waldorf here with you. If you haven't already, please give us a like and a share. That helps us out tremendously. I want to thank everybody for, of course, watching as well. I think we hit 200 again. We've been doing that pretty well. So thanks to everybody for joining us in the live stream. You guys are awesome. Just reading through some of the comments. You guys are great. I especially love when somebody said I was going Dovahkiin. Somebody plays Skyrim. I appreciate the reference. So, thank you. All right. So, let's roll into the next story. Still related to the tax scam, but has something to do with Joe Scarborough. Interesting. Morning, Joe. All right. So earlier today, Morning Joe had a segment about the Republican tax plan. Surprisingly enough, Joe Scarborough and his panel of conservatives actually seemed to be against this tax cut plan. It's very interesting, and they had an interesting argument with this. One of the panelists said, "Oh man, you know what? This bill is going to turn young people into socialists." So that's to show you where they're at on this one. Now, unfortunately, I don't have the video for you guys because video for this is pretty difficult to get today. I'm not sure how, you know. But anyway, we'll move on from that. You guys probably don't want to know the breakdown of what I do during the day, so I'll just edit that out later on. But so they're saying, oh, this bill will turn people into socialists. Too late. 44% of millennials now support socialism over capitalism. The Republican Party has already lost a huge chunk of young people, since a lot of us grew up during the height of the recession caused by capitalism. It wasn't socialists that caused this, right? It wasn't any sort of socialism that caused the banks to explode during 2007, 2008. No, it was greed. It was Wall Street predatory capitalism, loaning out houses or money to houses to people who couldn't afford to pay it back. That is predatory capitalism. So that's what's happened. Now, that same system has crushed young people under a mountain of student loan debt, low wages, and of course, unaffordable housing, right? But the argument is, hey man, look, one of the arguments that they use is, hey man, look, we gotta look at the debt. We've got to look at the debt. We're leaving those kids. In fact, that was one of the arguments from one of the Morning Joe panelists this morning. It said, hey, look, we're leaving our kids $1.5 trillion in debt, in deficits. And we're not even doing anything about it. We're not even cutting entitlements. I mean, we've got to do something, right? We can't just leave these kids holding the bag. I understand the sentiment and the framework is definitely super conservative. But in some weird way, they're trying to, they know that they're losing. That's the thing. They know that they're losing young people. And I think what they're doing, especially what Morning Joe is trying to do, Joe Scarborough, is he's trying to appeal to more conservative millennials and to try to sway people from, hey man, look, you guys don't have to go to socialism. Our capitalist system works just fine. It's just Trump is taking it too far. Trump's actually the real problem. No, the problem is neoliberalism. That's the problem. Pro-corporate policies. That's the problem. Donald Trump is a symptom of the disease. Predatory capitalism without regulations, without an actual true mixed market system. That is the problem. Pro-corporate policies. Those are the problem. But of course, they're never going to admit that. Now, the deficit, of course, is not the chief concern for young people. It's actually student loan debt, the inability to get housing, even to be able to rent. Because rent in places like New York and San Francisco and LA is unattainable. It's also the inability to budget, and this is according to another poll. And look, again, students, not students, but millennials, young people, they're worried about high debt and inflation. And again, the inability to get housing. But these older conservatives are going to try to appeal to millennials So I'm going to tell you what Joe said on the show. He said, quote, "Millennials, you just had $1.5 trillion stolen away from you. Past Congresses have stolen $20 trillion from you. And over the next 10 years, they're going to steal another $10 trillion from you. And then they're going to die, and you're going to be left holding the bill. Republicans who claim to care about the debt are voting to steal $1.5 trillion from millennials. The very people who 48% are saying, no, we don't like the Republican Party." Well, I guess if you're one of the people who represents baby boomers, which a lot of Republicans do in this case, baby boomers are like, hey, millennials, eat it. We're going to leave you, not only are we going to destroy the planet, we're also going to leave you with a mountain of debt from our gigantic tax cut program. But hey, you know what? Fuck you guys. We're going to screw you over because it benefits us. And really, it just benefits the politicians and the gigantic corporations. It doesn't actually benefit the poor grandma on, Social Security benefits. So, but that's what we're seeing, right? Now, it's an awkward moment when conservatives are like, man, you know what? I think this tax cut gives too much to the rich. And that's Joe Scarborough. And it kind of goes to show you how terrible this tax bill actually is. You've got Morning Joe, the establishment, talking like a Democrat. Now, that is a problem right there. And I see it from a different lens, I think, than a lot of people will see it. Because you're going to have a lot of corporate establishment Democrats saying, yeah, absolutely, Joe. Look at Joe Scarborough being 100% reasonable. And look, that is a reasonable point. The problem is that this also shows how far to the right Democratic talking points are. Again, you have Morning Joe, Republican, well, conservative anyway. He's actually registered as an independent. Not that matters too much. But because he's like, oh, I can't be part of the same party that endorses people like Roy Moore. Hey, well, look, I understand that. I understand that view, but at the same time, you're still a conservative. You're still what Republicans used to be. You love giving tax cuts to the rich and to the corporations. You were very, very pro-business. And that ain't going to change. Just the fact that you're an independent, that's not changing, right? But we've gone so far to the right in this country that people like Scarborough are, again, they're starting to sound like what people would traditionally call left, or what they do call left now, which is not the traditional left. Traditional left is like, forget about the debt. Let's invest into students. Let's invest in millennials. Let's make sure that we actually give things like free college and healthcare to these millennials. Instead of saying, oh, look at how much debt we're going to leave the millennials. Let's not do that. Let's cut entitlements instead so we can make it up. That's the Republican position. That's the conservative position. The progressive position should be, no, we're going to make sure we're going to use our spending infrastructure. We're going to fix our schools. We're going to fix our roads. We're going to fix all this stuff. We're going to make sure we have health care for everybody. And we're going to make sure we have education for everybody. That doesn't bury you under a mountain of debt. We're going to make sure that we have a living wage, a livable wage for people. For millennials getting out in the market so they can at least afford to put food, a roof over their heads and food in the, on the table. That's the progressive position. But nonetheless, these guys think that they're going to appeal to millennials by saying, oh, look at how much the Republicans just stole from you. So what? We should just be in favor of so-called entitlement reform? Cutting Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security to make sure that we don't have it when we actually get to that age? No, that's not going to work. That's not going to work. And look, the reason I think that they're doing this is Scarborough is keenly aware that millennials, they're going to win in the future. We're going to win in the future, right? And that millennials right now are massively progressive. The most progressive generation in history so far, okay? While the Republican Party, while conservatives, which is what Joe is, are losing an entire generation. Very few people now want to be considered to be conservative. So a lot of them know that. They know what the future pretends. They see the writing on the wall, and it's got them very, very worried. Right? Now, Trump, look, Trump and the current GOP Congress, that is the last gasp of conservatism in its current form, right? I mean, here you have anti-gay, anti-science, anti-education, people that, shit on the poor, all of that. That's what they are now. Again, Scarborough is an independent, but again, he believes in at least enriching the rich and the corporations. He's one of those people that's like, I'm socially liberal on some things, but I'm definitely fiscally conservative because I love giving my donor or my rich friends more and more money. And when he was in Congress, giving his donors money. So, but even he knows this tax bill is legislative suicide. Again, it's deeply, deeply unpopular with the American people. They do not want to see this tax scam get enacted. So they know that it's going to destroy any chance of conservatives winning in the future. So, and Scoborough's like, let's not go down this road. I actually do want to win because, yes, we can still give the corporations and wealthy donors their money, but look at how bad this looks. Look at the optics of this. It looks absolutely terrible. And if we give it all to the rich right now, well, then that's it. They're on to us. No, what we have to do is incremental. We're actually working with the Democrats. Again, corporate Democrats, are more than happy to cut taxes for the rich. But they have to do it in a certain way. Republicans are doing it in a way that is basically, no. We're just going to give it all right now. Most massive tax cut in history. This is the only chance that we're going to get, and we're going to take it. And that's why you see them doing exactly what they're doing right now. This bill will be a win for authoritarian pro-corporate corruption because that's exactly what this is. And the Republican Party, if they vote for this, they are signing their death warrant. I can guarantee. Okay. Speaking of pro-corporate Democrats, let's go to Doug Jones. So fresh off his win in Alabama, Doug Jones, who is nobody's progressive, he ran a very, very centrist campaign and just happened to be paired up against a monster, Roy Moore. Now, it has not taken Jones very long to begin disappointing the progressive community, which again, they were not super enthused about him. But again, compared to what he was running against, well, he was actually a breath of fresh air. Oh, look at that, Alabama. We're going to have a Democrat in there that's not as bad as somebody who, like Roy Moore, who is deeply, deeply not only conservative, but fundamentalist, religious. Of course, he got kicked out from being a judge for not removing the Ten Commandments. So he had a lot of problems with not following secular law. He said a lot of troubling things about slavery, et cetera, right? Again, the guy's an absolute monster. And so even progressives are like, hey, man, look, it's a win. And now we're realizing that maybe it's not so much of a win. Let me explain. Now, again, he did not run as a progressive. He ran on a very centrist platform. And it's no surprise that, hey, look, he's looking to govern like one. He recently told CNN State of the Union, when asked if he will have to weigh voting with Republicans due to his state's strong Republican base, he says, quote, well, of course I do. Yeah, of course I have to consider voting like a strong conservative because that's what I was voted for. I mean, that's why I was voted in. I mean, people want a centrist, right-wing, Democrat in Alabama. That's the only reason I want. No. In fact, he's like, earlier, and I don't know if it was in the same interview, but I think it was a separate interview, he said, hey, man, look, I would have beaten Roy Moore even without the sexual allegations. No. Actually, you wouldn't. Because, look, Roy Moore, as I said, as monstrous as he was, the people actually liked those policies. Well, what happened is that African Americans and especially African American women and even white women, turned out because of the sexual harassment allegations. Turns out the Me Too movement is actually having, or the movement, sorry, is actually having a huge, huge impact in that race. That's what I actually believe. And I think there's a lot of polling that can back that up. But now, the thing is, right, again, the Republican base that he's talking about appealing to, right, and reaching out to, those are not the people that voted for you. Those are the people that voted for Roy Moore. Do you think you can actually, I don't know, appeal to those people by being a centrist, milquetoast Democrat that actually doesn't stand for anything? By doing what? By doing more pro-business, pro-corporate policies? No, that's not going to get you anywhere. I mean, look, again, for the African American community, for example, what are you going to do for them, right? Are you actually going to be able to work on, poverty programs or anti-poverty programs that might actually help them, might actually help African Americans be able to open businesses and actually, prosper? I don't know. That's what's troubling. And look, if he doesn't do anything for the African American community, then guess what? They're not going to turn out for him again. And I think part of the reason that African Americans turned out so strongly as well is the slavery comments. Again, Roy Moore was a unique monster. So he's not another establishment Republican, which would have been Luther Strange. Now, Luther Strange would have beaten Doug Jones. I absolutely believe it. Because Luther Strange is your establishment Republican. Not a complete monster. Probably still uses those same sort of coded language for against African Americans. Oh, welfare queens, all that stuff. We got to cut entitlements and do all that stuff. So it's not out in your face about it. But make no mistake, he would have beaten Doug Jones. Absolutely, in my view. It's not the fact that he was a centrist. It's not why he won. But again, as you're going to see, he has completely lost that message. He said, I'm going to talk to people on both sides of the aisle, try to figure out what I think is the best interest of my state and in the country. Now, don't expect me to vote solidly for Republicans or Democrats. Centrist, mate. That's what he was. Is this tax bill? Oh, I don't know. It helps the rich. Let me think about it. In fact, he did talk about that. Let me get to this quote here. He says, I don't buy into the fact that it's going to grow the economy such that the $1 trillion in debt will get wiped. I think that's a major problem. So he's like, oh, man, Republican tax bill. I don't know if I'm going to vote for it. I'll have to see how it turns out. But so far, I'm not quite convinced that $1 trillion is going to get wiped out. It's actually 1.5, and some experts are now saying in a new analysis that it's going to be around $2 trillion worth of debt. Wonderful. But don't worry, Doug Jones is on it. He's going to think about it. He's going to think about it. Oh. He said, we'll wait and see how it goes. We're going to start looking at it just in case I'm up there at a time. But it's a complicated bill. Yeah, it is complicated. Except that the whole purpose of the bill is that it's a gigantic transfer of wealth from the poor and the middle class to the incredibly rich. Incredibly rich. That is the entire purpose of the bill. Why can't Doug Jones just look at that and go, look, I know what they're trying to do. They're trying to make the rich incredibly rich. That's what this is all about. I vote no. That's not going to help my constituents. In fact, it's deeply, deeply unpopular with the people that voted for me. No, of course I'm not going to agree. Of course I'm not going to vote in favor of this piece of trash. This ridiculous pro-corporate bill. Are you kidding me? That's what Doug Jones should say. And you know what? His approval rating would probably shoot up. I can almost guarantee that. But no. Doug Jones says, I got to be centrist and I got to be partisan and I've got to respect the other side and give them a fair chance. I got to give them a fair shot. Do you ever see Republicans do that? Do you think Roy Moore, if he'd have won, said, I don't know, I'm going to have to wait on this tax bill. Do you think Luther Strange was going to say, I don't know, man, this might give a little too much to the rich. I'm going to have to take a minute to look at it. You think he would have done that? Absolutely not. He would have signed on. Day one. Day one. Oh, Republican tax cuts for the rich? Absolutely. I'm going to vote for it. 100%. Where do I sign? Where do I sign? My donors say I have to give this tax cut to the rich. This whole thing about, oh, you know, I'm being so unsure. A lot of it is this ridiculous political theater, right? That's what all this is about. Even for Doug Jones. Look, Doug Jones is not going to vote for this. Of course, he's going to play Democrats, right? He's an establishment Democrat. He's going to vote with his party. Most of his party says no. In fact, all the Democrats say no. But what he's doing is saying, look at me. I'm so moderate. I'm actually considering the other side. Again, that's not the way to get people on your side. It right now is, look, moderates they had a place in our political system. That time is not now. That place is not now. Okay? Our system is so far tilted to the right that we need to fix it by seriously pushing to the left. That way, we'll at least end up somewhere near the original middle. I hope. Although, I actually hope we go a little bit further to the left so we can actually get back to things like New Deal programs. A second economic Bill of Rights. You know, everybody's entitled to a job. Everybody's entitled to be able to survive in the richest country in the world. Everybody's entitled to health care. Doesn't matter who you are. Doesn't matter how much money you have. You're entitled to health care, a good education. That's where I want to end up. We're nowhere near that system. And look, people like Doug Jones, even people like Ralph Northam. Ralph Northam, so-called centrist, right? But he did run on protecting Medicaid. Guess what he's doing? He's supporting the cut to Medicaid. Centrists, man. Fucking centrists. Look, again, Doug Jones won't support this bill, right? Back to the tax plan. It's insane and deeply unpopular and actually won't stand up to the extreme right, right? So it won't help his constituency that voted him into office. Now, what effect is that going to have on the politics, right? Even if he doesn't vote for that, just saying he's open to it, you think that's going to excite the African-American wave that propelled him into office? You think that's going to excite anybody? No. Look, that's not going to happen if Doug Jones does little or nothing to try to help him. I mean, he's not putting forward their issues. What's the big issue with people? Stagnating wages, poverty, economic anxiety. There is actual economic anxiety. And I'm not talking about in Trump voters. No, Trump voters, it's been proven that it's mainly racism. But when you're actually looking at most of the American people, one of their biggest concerns is jobs. One of their biggest concerns is wages. How am I going to go and take care of my family? Am I going to get a job that's going to be able to pay the rent? Am I going to get enough wages to not have to get a second or third job? That's my concern. What is Doug Jones going to do about that? What is centrism going to do for that? Oh, little bits of incremental change here and there. Maybe eventually we'll get to a somewhat better system that is slightly just more improved for regular people, but still massively tilted towards the rich. That's what incrementalism gets us. It gets us almost nowhere. But then these politicians can sit back and go, mission accomplished. I give you 10% change, which is not anything that Doug Jones has even offered. And that's what's frustrating about this. Absolutely frustrating. Now, another thing, right, that Doug Jones is not doing. Recently, he said that it's time to look past President Trump's sexual harassment accusations. Really? So, again, women of color voted at 98% for Doug Jones. White women helped Jones carry the day against Roy Moore. What's one thing that women are really, really concerned with right now? Oh, right. The sexual harassment allegations and even sexual harassment allegations against President Trump, which are credible. But here's Jones saying, we look forward, not backwards. No. Here's a quote. Let's get on with the real issues that are facing people of this country right now. And I don't think the president ought to resign at this point. We will see how things go, but certainly those allegations are not new. And he was elected with those allegations at front and center. What a strong politician. You could just feel the strength from Doug Jones. The strength of his convictions, man. You can just hear it. Boy, he's ready to fight for you if you're a woman. He's ready to fight for you if you're African American. He's ready to fight for you on all these different issues. Oh, wait, no, he's not. No. He's going to play go along to get along. He's going to play patty cakes with the Republicans. And the Republicans, they're going to stomp all over him. That's what's going to happen. I guarantee, at least right now, when Doug Jones comes up for re-election, he's going to get crushed by an establishment Republican. And then, all the pundits on TV, it's going to be, oh my God, what happened? Our centrist beloved Doug Jones, he got destroyed by an establishment Republican. I guess maybe Jones should have went further to the right. That is not what we're supposed to do. God, man, is anybody going to go left? And actually, look, I already know the answer to that question. Very few people on the Democratic Party and the establishment are going to go left. But you know what happens when we go left? We win. The Democratic Socialists of America picked up 15 seats during this last election. Virginia, we had a whole host of progressives, even people who call themselves openly socialist, running in these different positions, and they won. And they were winning. And they want to claim, the Democrats, oh, no. We've got to work with the Republicans. We've got to work more with the Republicans. We've got to be bipartisan. We can't go left. No, we're not. No, people don't want us to go left. We have to go further to the right. We have to deal with the Republicans. No, man. And look, I'm not saying that there isn't a place for bipartisan solutions. Yeah, of course, if a Republican comes up with a fantastic idea, then yes, I will agree with it. I've given credit to Republicans who are like, hey, look, maybe we should do give an increase to the solar industry so we don't fuck up our planet. And actually, if we make a little money on the side, wonderful. That's the kind of Republican I can get behind, right? Who actually does something good and says, I can make a couple bucks off doing something good. Wonderful, right? But we don't live in that world. In our world, Donald Trump is president and corruption rules. We have no proper leftist party anymore. We need radical change. And the Doug Jones of the world are not it. They take the wrong lessons from the loss of Roy Moore. Yes, it is way better to vote for a centrist than a pedophile. But Jesus Christ, that does not mean that centrism is awesome. It doesn't mean that we should all vote for centrists. Centrism is not coming back. I'm sorry, it's not. It's over with. Our politicians need to get with the times or get left behind. I wonder which one will happen. Okay. It's been an angrier show than I thought. But that's it. That's all I've got for you guys today. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for going around the nation with me today on this Monday. We'll have another great show tomorrow right here. Same time, same place. We'll be streaming live on both Facebook, my Facebook page, facebook.com/TYTNation, as well as on our YouTube page, youtube.com/TYTNation. So thank you again. Thanks to the patrons, patreon.com/TYTNation. If you want to support us directly with donations, that helps a lot. So thank you. And if you haven't, please like our Facebook page and also subscribe to our YouTube. So help us get to 70,000 YouTube subscribers. So that's our next goal. All right, everybody. Thanks a lot. Love you guys. And remember, change begins with you. Good night, TYT Nation. We'll see you guys tomorrow.